What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Wet Boots Podcast. My name is Leo. This is a show where I talk to people who are or have been in the military and I get a chance to hear their story. My guest today is the CEO and founder of Freedom Bear Coffee Company. He's also on the board of QRF Up organization, helping veterans and first responders all around the United States. He's been in the Army for over 15 years and he got out and he's starting to pursue that entrepreneurial spirit. Please welcome my guest today, Damien Celaya. Damien, wonderful to have you on the podcast today.
Hey, wonderful to be here, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you for coming on. And I know we had some hiccups last week. That's my fault, but we finally made it happen, dude.
If you disappear, then we have some issues, right? But yeah, you came back. You're halfway back as far as your sickness, dude. We're good to go, man.
Yeah, I was sick last week. We were talking about it earlier. I was sick last week and I let you know on a Friday. We are supposed to record last Sunday. And I let you know Friday. I was like, dude, I am not okay right now. I might be good for Sunday, but just letting you know right now, just so it's not a last minute cancellation.
Yeah, like I said, man, I wasn't okay either, man. So I'm glad you canceled on that one. I was already kind of boat lagged and shit, and drank a whole lot during that whole thing. And I drink a lot anyways. That's just kind of what it comes with. But a
Yeah.
little bit more so when a boat is rocking, it's a little bit of a problem.
Yeah, we were talking about you going on a cruise, man. How was that? I'm almost positive that you got the all inclusive.
No, not the all inclusive. I mean, the lady was testing the waters as far as a cruise. This was her first one. And, I've been on a cruise once before and I was like, let's do this. Let's see, a few things. Let's try to get some stuff off her bucket list mainly. So we kind of went the cheaper route at first. However, what ended up happening was they have a casino on this boat. All right. Keep in mind, there's
Oh,
like
that's
5,000.
dangerous.
Right. Keep in mind, there's like 5,000 people on this boat. The adults, if we're just out at sea, we're not going to port shit. There's a lot of things to do. One is the casino. We're playing the casino and, you put enough money in, eventually they give you a free cruise. And that's what happened.
Damn.
So now next year it'll be the Caribbean.
Okay, hell yeah. You
Yeah.
you put enough money in the casino, they give you a
Or
free
yeah, you
cruise.
do. Well, I mean, so you pay for it. Essentially, you pay
Yeah.
for it, right? That's what it is. But now, now it's going to be a better room. It's going to be fucking, Jamaica, Dominican Republic, Bahamas, all this other shit, Puerto Rico. It's going to be much different.
Oh man, that's gonna be so nice. Plus, you got a free cruise out of it, which is clutch, dude. Hell yeah. I don't know
Yeah,
if the kids
yeah.
say clutch still, but I am keeping it in.
I don't give a fuck what the kids say. Come
Fuck them, dude.
on. I'll tell you.
Let's get into the meat and potatoes of why you're here, dude, to tell your military story. Now, we talked about this earlier. You were in the Army for about 15 years. Give us a backstory of why you decided to join the military, and I'm always interested to know why people chose that specific branch.
Yeah. So mine, before I joined the military, I had no aspirations to be a soldier, like
Mhm.
or an airman or seaman, anything. I didn't have any aspirations. I respected them very highly. I thought those guys were heroes and they were doing some great things for our country. But it wasn't something I was thinking about, mainly because I was constantly on the move, man. Like my whole life was a constant, just temporary environment. And that's how it always was. So to think about something that might be permanent, might be a career that's a long lasting thing, it just wasn't in my thought process. And, it got to a point, throughout my life. Keep in mind, dude, when I say I moved a lot, and I was temporary, dude, I went to 36 schools in 9 years.
Oh my God.
You
Oh
know,
my God.
yeah. And that was through 7 different states and, triple the amount of cities and towns. So it was always just a constant temporary friends, temporary environment, temporary, in certain cases, a temporary, boyfriend for my mom or a temporary girlfriend for my dad, because they were splitting up at that time. There's just everything was temporary. So I didn't think about it. I was like, how do I survive? That was my main goal. What can I do to survive? And that's what I did. It wasn't until I got into a relationship, which was my first ex-wife, that, she got to a point of telling me like, hey, you gotta stay put. You have to do something with your life. You can't be working at the time I was working at IHOP. You can't be working at IHOP the rest of your life. So she kind of gave me an ultimatum and I'm just like, okay, well, let me think about this a bit. My cousin at the time, he was a year into the Army National Guard out of Arizona at the time. And I talked to him about it. I'm like, hey, is this a good idea? And, he was kind of built for this stuff. I was in a sense, but I wasn't thinking about it in that term, but he always wanted to be a soldier. So he was ready to go. So I talked to him about it and then, 9 months, 10 months later, I signed on that dotted line because I had to take care of some other stuff to get there. And the rest was history.
And so what made you, and so you chose the army specifically because the closest tie you had to the military was your cousin in the National Guard. Now, I have a good question here. Well, mainly for me because I'm curious. What made you went active duty, right?
Strictly guard the whole time.
Okay, so you went strictly guard the whole time for 15 years. What made you not want to go active duty?
I still wanted a little bit more freedom. I still wanted the ability. Again, I still had that mindset of temporary. So
Okay.
at least with the guard side of things, if I want PCS anywhere, it's a little bit easier. But if I want to go anywhere on my own, and still be in the military, the chances are pretty great.
Okay.
And then on the other side is like, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do in terms of like an actual career. On the guard side, you have your obligation on the military side, 1 week in a month, 2 weeks in the summer, and then you have whatever you decide to do for your main thing, right? And I was still in that kind of process. It wasn't until I got on my first deployment where I realized like, one, this is bad for me because I want to get on another one quickly as possible. And then two, like it gave me a little bit more perspective of like where I wanted my life to lead. It didn't have to necessarily be military, but the structure of that kind of had to be there. So, and it allowed me and my brain to kind of slow down and just be like, hey, I like this unit. I like what I've done so far. This doesn't have to be tech.
And so tell us about so when you first got into the National Guard, right? How was it getting to your first unit, and how far from you getting to your first unit did you get your first deployment or annual training?
Yeah, so I joined in June of 2007. That's when I signed on dotted line, did the thing. I still had to do a few things in terms of like I wasn't a model citizen. I got into a little bit of trouble, as a younger adult. So I had to take care of some of that stuff before I can ship out. So I did all that, and my ship out date was January or February of 2008 at that point. So I was in for a good little bit. I was doing the drill time prior. It's FRG, I believe is what's called. And it's just kind of getting you prepared for basic training, AIT, the whole fucking thing. And keep in mind, I joined in as 11 Charlie. That was the only infantry that they had in the state of Nevada. So no 11 Bravos, 11 Charlie.
Okay.
So indirect fire infantryman is what it was. And I chose that specifically because that was like the quickest basic in AIT to get through.
Hell yeah, man.
Right. So again, I'm still up in the air at this point of like where I wanted to go, what I wanted to do. I just know I wanted to join. I wanted to make it as quick as possible, and I want to get to my unit as quickly as possible. And that's what I did.
Now, with that being said, it was the fastest basic training. It was the fastest AIT. Was it also the fastest from the time that you were? Was it the fastest MOS available from the ship date from when you were like signing up for it?
No, there's a few there that was available, especially in 2007. But again, I still had to take care of those things before I came to the
Oh,
ship.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was the closest to when I was done taking care of all that stuff, which is fine. I came back, in May of 2008. And then the next month after June, I got to my first unit. And at that point, which was great, my cousin moved to Vegas, joined that unit, and he met me there.
Oh, wow. So you were in the
Yeah.
same unit with your cousin. So how was your first deployment? Where, I mean, we can't really get too specific about the location, but how was your first deployment, and what about it really made you say, I want another one of these?
Well, okay, so I get to my unit in June, right, 2008, and I'm kind of figuring out how this whole like drill thing works and this whole National Guard thing works. Because when you go to basic, it doesn't matter if you're a nasty girl, it doesn't matter if you're active duty, like you're all in the same spot when you're in
Yeah.
basic and AIT. Some people just are told to go somewhere, and then some people just go where they want to go, like back
Mhm.
home. Well, I'm still kind of getting my feet wet there, and then July drill, we get told by our command that, hey, there's a volunteer deployment coming up for Iraq. We need 120 bodies. Who wants to volunteer? My cousin volunteers first. So I'm like, well, shit. Me and my brother, or me and my cousin, we're super close. We've been super close our whole lives. So wherever he goes, I'm going to try to go. So he volunteers. I volunteer. So we're ready to go to Iraq. Here, I think it was like 8 months later, the mission was supposed to hit. No, September comes around, and they say, hey, that Iraq deployment? We're like, yeah, well, I got nixed. It's not happening. I'm like, well, shit. They're like, everybody's going to Afghanistan in
Okay.
2009. Yeah, the whole unit. It didn't matter. From volunteer to voluntold is what ended up happening. So we had a 6 months train up for that. We had to go to Atterbury, do our thing there, and then ship out. And it was mostly Eastern Afghanistan at that point. But, that was just kind of from the time I got into the military, from the time I got to my unit to the first deployment, it was a year.
Yeah, that's usually, I mean, looking back on it, that's usually around the time and even faster before like 2014, because you hear those stories about people going active duty, getting to their unit, and then a week or a month later they deploy. And then again, they come back, and then a week or a month later they go back out again, especially during that time, like I said, because that's when the Afghanistan and Iraq war was still going on pretty strong. And then, I mean, when I came in 2014, it was like I got to my, or 2013, I got to my unit, and then it just kind of came out of nowhere. And I was like, and my unit was deployed, I think, or I had just come back from a deployment. They came back, and then it was just a whole train up cycle all over again. And then back to Afghanistan in 2014.
Yeah, and usually, at least on the guard side, there's typically a 2 to 3 year reset period between deployments for
But you can
units.
volunteer for them, right? And like waive that period.
Yeah, so if there's another unit going out, they're slated to go on another deployment or on their own deployment, then you can jump on there. I mean, if that slot's available, if they want to put you under a different MOS as far as the MTO, then they can do that just to kind of supplement. Because what ends up happening, and I think you know this, when you go through MOB, I mean, there's gonna be some fucking broken bodies that are gonna come out of that, and
Yeah.
they won't be able to go on that deployment. So now they have to supplement. Now they have to
Hmm.
find some people to kind of cover down. And that's the same thing on the guard side. We didn't have too many during my first deployment, and that one was a very much a, like, no holds bar, big massive deployment, mainly PRTs, like or ADTs, agricultural development teams,
Okay.
throughout through spread out throughout Afghanistan, and then a very small contingent of the units. Keep in mind, it was all of Nevada, it was parts of Georgia, it was all of Guam. It was 400 plus IR guys that got called to do this mission.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So there was a bunch of IR guys that were still on their last 2 or 4 years of inactive Army Reserve and they ended up getting called in. So that was kind of that whole thing. So part of that whole thing was coin operations, which was
Hmm.
counterinsurgency operations, and that was a deeper part of RC East is where that was going on, and that's what I was doing.
So correct me if I'm wrong here, but the IRR is for those people who only do like one contract, like the 4 years. You're on IRR for the next 4 years, right? So basically, like the army or the government can call you back to service for whatever it is, and then you're still on that those remaining years or whatever it is, right?
Yeah, so your first contract when you join the military, regardless of whether it's like a 2 and 6 or 6 and 2 or 4 and 4 or whatever the case may be, it's always going to be 8 years.
Hmm.
Always. And then, the active time or the guard time will vary within that.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you have, for those that don't know, again, there's a very big opportunity within that time period where you can get called back to service. And a lot of people do, or at least they did during that time. And if you didn't get called or you lost the mail or whatever the case may be, then they handled it accordingly is what ended up happening.
Yeah. Man, imagine being one of those guys that you're out. You did your first term, you're out. Then you get a letter in the mail that you're deploying to Iraq, and you're like, "What the fuck, man?"
So it's funny because, of course, a lot of those guys, they were also 11 Charlies and they jumped into our platoons and what have you. And so we asked those same questions, like, what were you doing when you got this letter? And,
That's interesting.
yeah, some were like, I was doing college. Some were like, I was in the middle of, this, that, a few were like, dude, I was a heavy drug addict, dude. I needed this shit.
Oh,
So
wow.
I was like, okay, Roger that.
Yeah.
One guy was a huge cocaine addict, and he needed a reset, so he took the call, and then that was it.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, I mean, we're all Neanderthals, bro, on the military side.
Yeah,
It's
we're all
just kind of how it
savages.
goes. So I wasn't surprised. But that's what the military also provides that people don't know is depending on what you're doing, like it could be a major reset. That's also half the reason why people volunteer for missions.
Yeah.
It, we can't do shit right here, so let's go back to where we can do shit right. And then that's how it goes. That's kind of how it was for me, honestly.
Tell us how that first deployment went. Tell us the highlights and the lowlights.
So that for me again, it was coin operations. I was deep RC East, close to Pakistan border. The only place that was closer at that point was J-Bad, and then Cop Keening, which was north of J-Bad, further north. And it was a cop. It was a blacked out cop with only 30 Americans on it, and that was it. And our job there for the coin operations were mainly KLEs, like key leader engagements, and trying to there's a red line around that base where no American has gone past,
Okay.
and we try to make that line further and further and further throughout that deployment. We would go further into the villages, we would go further out, further out, further out, and it was mainly again for those key leader engagements, and also just kind of unknowingly clear is
Yeah.
what was happening, and then we would get the intel, and that's where the fun begins. Whether or not we have to kick in doors, whether or not we have to search, whether or not we need to have special forces involved in certain things or anything else, that's just kind of how it went down. A lot of it was hurry up and wait. That's how all deployments are.
Yeah.
A lot of it, then, then a lot of it was the mission at hand, and then a big part of it between those two were, just trying not to get bored. Trying to do something, whether it be the gym, that's a big thing, right?
Hmm.
Trying to work out in some way. Some people had, their PlayStations at the time, and they figured out a way to do that whole thing. We had zero internet. We had a phone to hit home that was one for all 30 of us that barely worked. It was literally like this whole experience of I am literally away from everything that could affect me in a negative way. The only thing that affects me here is that bad guy that wants to kill me.
Yeah.
That's it. And there's kind of a solace to that if you think about it. You know what I mean? One thing to worry about. Everything else is taken care of or out of your purview. And
Yeah. And
that's kind of how it was for me.
it's really interesting because I've heard deployments be described in several different ways. Now, again, you have deployments like Kuwait and like Air Force bases somewhere in the Middle East. Technically, they're deployments, but when you visit these Air Force bases or when you're just passing by, you're like, oh my God, this is a deployment for them. So deployments may vary, right?
Yeah.
But I've heard deployments be described like such a nice way. They're like you just said, you're away from everything and you're away from all the problems back home. They're still kind of lingering in there, but when you only have a phone for 30 people, there's not many ways that those problems can reach you, and you're only worried for those about those people that are trying to kill you, right? But I've also heard it described as prison because in a sense it's kind of true. You're in a certain spot that you can't really step away from, and you can only step away from this certain area under certain conditions, i.e., going out on missions, right? And then when those missions are over, you come back and you're still trying to not get bored. You're still trying to go to the gym. You're trying to do whatever it is to not get bored. But you're still just confined in this tiny little area. But then again, like we crave to go back there.
Well, so that's the thing. So, I mean, you described it as a prison, right? So I mean, keep in mind, I already tried to volunteer for the Iraq mission prior to this, right? So I already kind of knew what I was getting myself into. I was excited to do something that was beyond me. But also just to kind of do that reset period. That's what it was. It was just let me get away from everything that I've been through for the last, at that point, was 23 years. And let me get on something that I've never been through and see where this takes me. And we were super busy, granted, but of course, yeah, there was downtime and stuff like that. If they weren't rocketing us or if they weren't, indirect fire, if we weren't out there getting shot at when we're on mission, it was really just, hey, try to do something to keep yourself grounded, in some kind of way. But the whole prison side for me was when I got back from that was the feeling of being institutionalized to it is what it ended up being. Feeling of like I got used to it. This now being back home is different. This does not feel right. When I was here last time, it felt different. I need to go back. I'm not okay here. And that was kind of that institutionalization was like just not feeling like you belong.
Yeah,
And
and it's weird to get used to. It's weird to get used to coming back home because the your day to day is filled with a different kind of noise in a sense. Back when you're deployed, your noise is filled with either the alarms going off, the CRAM going off, mortars, fire, whatever it is, it's filled with a certain noise and you get used to that. Then you get back home and now you're used to the traffic, you're used to your alarm going off and stuff like that. Like I said, it's a different kind of noise that you're filled up with, but that one just kind of like irks you in such a way. And that's why it's hard to make the adjustment from being back.
It is, and then the other side of it too is, you get to a point where you become an asshole. And I'm gonna say it the way that kind of makes sense is everybody's problems that they have just seem minuscule at the time. You know, like you're complaining about traffic or you're complaining about like this or that and stuff like that. Did you not know what was happening over
Yeah.
here? Like
Yeah.
you have this partly have this chip on your shoulder, but there's also that sense of just like, yeah, your shit doesn't matter, bro. Like you should have saw the kids over here in these villages. Like they were happy. What the fuck are you complaining about? You know what I
Yeah,
mean? That type of
it's
shit.
it's also a weird situation because when you, like you said, you feel like you have a chip on your shoulder, you feel like you have a chip on your shoulder, and like people don't know what you've been through, and in your mind you're like, you guys are complaining about traffic, this and that, your fucking Starbucks order is wrong or something like that. But then again, at the
Right?
same time, but it's also weird because then again, at the same time, you feel like life isn't fair right now. And you feel like it's not fair, but at the same time you're like, okay, well, at least I did. I mean, you feel like it's not fair. Like I did all this shit and I'm going back to the same fucking thing that I left. But it's
Well, no,
also
it's true though.
it's
It
also
is true.
like another weird feeling being in the military, just, going through, especially being away for so long, right? Especially for being away for so long in a deployment, because you come back and you talk to the people that you were talking to, your friends, whatever it might be, and they've advanced maybe 4 years, what seems like 4 years in their life. And you're just picking back up from 9 months or a year from where you left off.
Yeah, well, especially on the guard side. I mean, on the active side, of course, you know where you're coming back to. Like
Hmm.
you already know, and that whatever you've done over there as far as advancement, everything else will translate over because it's active. It's all same. But yeah, on the guard side, I mean, it is literally picking back up or resetting your civilian life or whatever the case may be. And it does take that kind of toll, right? And it did for me. When I got back, I got pretty numb in my relationship. At that point, my first marriage, we just got married before I shipped out to deployment. The normal thing. We wanted
Yeah.
that we wanted that separation pay. And so we're still newly married. I married her only a couple of months before I went to Atterbury to ship.
Oh, wow.
So when we got back, or when I got back, our marriage was still new. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like a year has passed, but that didn't matter. It's still very, very new. And I wasn't okay, man. Like I wasn't okay. I was very numb to this kind of the situation as a whole. I was numb to again to like everybody's bullshit. So much so that like I was like, I can't be here. I have to do something to fix it. And my crutch at the time, the way I thought about it was, okay, no, I'm going to volunteer for another deployment. Keep in mind, my first one was when we talk about deployment, like you said earlier, like there's deployments, there's missions, there's other things. Yeah, they're all technically deployments, but they're very different. My first one was very combat. That was very like, hey, this is the one that you want to be on, or the one you thought about what deployment actually is. That's what that was. And that was my starting point, right? So I jumped on. I was so bad at home, I jumped on another deployment, and that was 10 months after my first one, after I got back from my first one,
Wow.
which was another deployment to Afghanistan. But this time it was RC South. This was Kandahar.
Okay. Okay. So you said your first deployment was the one that you think about when you think of a deployment, and like your first, and like you first come into the army. When you think of a deployment, that's what it was like. Can you give us a couple examples of what you thought it was going to be and the reality of it?
So it was exactly what I thought it was going to be. That was the best part about it. In terms of um, hearing it from the people that already had that weren't sick leave back in my unit before deployment. Some of the movies that I watched, and keep in mind, I was a young adult at the time too. I wasn't a teenager when I joined. I wasn't a teenager when I went to deployment. So I kind of already had a thought process in my head, like, okay, this is what people tell you it is now, minus 70% of it, or
Hmm.
not 70% of it, 30% of it, and that's what it actually is. There's only be that very small window where it's like, no, this is 110%.
Yeah.
Was a completely different thing, and so it was what that was, and then it became more for two reasons. So when we were there, the whole cop caning thing happened. If you ever watched the movie The Outpost and stuff like that, that's what that is. It was a cop that shouldn't have been where it was located, that got overran by a few hundred insurgents, and these guys had to survive. That's basically what happened. So while I was there, that's what happened, and it got real for us because we were one of the closest cops to that location. We got the warno to be like, hey, get your shit ready. We're gonna go help these people. And luckily, unluckily, what ended up happening, we getting close to the bird, about ready to freaking go head over there. Like they came back with a frago stating that like, hey, they're good. There's a few other units that were close by that we didn't know about. Blah 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 blah. They're helping them out. So we got kind of nixed out of that. But
Okay.
that kind of gave me at this point we already had a few casualties in our unit. Nothing crazy.
All right, everybody, it's time to pay the bills. This episode is brought to you by Titan Nutrition. Summer's here, and if you're serious about your fitness, you need to be just as serious about what you're putting into your body. That's right. Titan Nutrition's products are third-party tested, clinically dosed, and actually deliver results. Whether you're trying to build muscle, cut fat, or recover faster, or just feel human again, they got you covered. And the best part, Titan ships fast and right to your door. Go to titannutrition.net, code word wet boots at checkout for 10% off your order. And guess what? Free shipping on orders over $75. Get on over there and get yourself right. That's titannutrition.net, code wet boots. All right, let's get back to the show.
Fourth ID that we were under had multiple casualties during that deployment. So shit was real. People were dying. A few people were getting shot, a few people getting blown up, the whole thing. So at that point, it was already as real as it got until that came out and we got told what was happening there. That's where it was just like, holy shit. Like there's gonna be my first thought there was like anybody that survived that, anybody that went through that, there might be some Medal of Honor recipients for this one. That's how
Mhm.
crazy this shit was, and there was, and that's how real it got. Like the when people exaggerate war, like especially our modern war, right? That was it, and it's been one of those things ever since. So it started out normal, real for me, and then it got quickly turned into like, well, that could have been fucking bad.
Okay, so your first deployment was pretty real for the most part, and then as you kind of progressed in your National Guard and you started volunteering for deployments, they weren't as bad as the first one.
Oh no, no. So my second one was a volunteer mission. This was a signal company that was heading to Kandahar. They lost some people within the mob station
Mhm.
due to medical reasons. They needed to supplement. So the first thing they did was like, okay, Cav, I was part of the 1221 Cav here in Nevada. We need 35 bodies. Who wants to volunteer? And I was kind of already in pretty well with our sergeant major at the time. God rest his soul. He passed away recently, but he kind of helped me get onto that deployment. Helped my cousin get onto that deployment. Him and I both volunteered for that. He was also not doing great at home. And it was like, hey, this is going to be a different mission. And we were like, oh, we just need to get away. We just need to
Yeah.
get away from here. We don't care what it is. And what that one ended up being was still Afghanistan, a different part of Afghanistan, and me being the battalion training NCO of that signal company. So from infantry to
The Office.
doing training is what it
Yeah.
was.
Yeah. So
Yeah, it was
so it was, yeah, it
9 day
was
difference.
9 day difference. Yeah. So
Yeah.
did you volunteer for any other deployments after that one? Because you just got out not too long ago. How many deployments did you have under your belt once you started coming out?
So I had three technically. They considered our Australia one a deployment. That wasn't a deployment. That was like a 35-day thing. But yeah, so three deployments and plus that one. And then, any other active duty time that I did was I was an instructor for an RTI, a Regional Training Institute for the military. That's usually like MLSQ or advanced leader courses, stuff of that nature.
Oh, wow.
I was an instructor for that for a little bit. And then of course, the deployments and then a handful of like mini schools and MLSQs that I did. I ended up having a few MLSs before I got out.
And then that time was pretty chill for you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We had a lot happen, like I said, during the first one. A lot more happened after everybody got back. We had a lot happen during my second one in terms of, all the shit that people don't want to talk about, but there's war and then there's what war does to people, the
Mhm.
suicides, the rashness, the things that, cause people to go to prison and go to jail and all those other things because of what war does. A lot of that kind of stuff happened. My third deployment was nothing short of a very strategic, very long vacation with spurts of work. That's the only
Okay.
way I can explain it.
Okay.
And I say that because my third one, this was 2000, oh, my third one was Kuwait that you mentioned earlier. It was Kuwait. It was with a sustainment brigade out of Nevada,
Hmm.
which is mostly brass, mostly higher ups. If you know anything about sustainment brigade,
Yeah.
the lowest rank is an E7 or E8, and you're basically a private at that point. That's how
Yeah.
crazy those things are. And it was Kuwait, and my job at that point was ComSec, was mainly communications, and then a bit of IT at that point. I kind of transitioned to that realm over the course of my career, and that one was interesting in the fact that, like, my first sergeant at the time, which I deployed with in 2012, my second deployment, or 2011, my second deployment, was like, hey, I know you don't like the flagpole. These guys are on these Army watercrafts need somebody to do their communications piece because one of their guys didn't show up for the radio side of things and IT.
Did not show up.
Yeah, so those boats were so these were LSVs, and they're cargo vessels that, like, hold, you know,
The connexes and
anything,
stuff.
the Connexes, anything else that they could
Okay.
put on there. There's 36 bodies on the vessel themselves, and they're all ran by CW.
Okay.
So first of all, when she said Army, I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like,
Yeah, we don't
Army
do boats.
watercraft? Yeah, apparently, beknownst to me was we have more watercraft than the Navy. We just don't have all the big.
Whoa, that's
Yeah,
interesting.
we have all the tiny ones and all of those, the little Dow boats and other shit, and like stuff like that. But yeah, we have a lot more vessels, just not the crazy fucking destroyers and carriers and shit.
Yeah.
But so that was already confused, one. And then two, she was just like, hey, there's a lot going on here. Like, you're doing a great job and all that stuff, but I know you need a reset. I'm like, okay, cool. So I get on there and, I do my piece. They absolutely love me. And the vacation part that I was talking about was doing my thing there, but getting the chance to go see Dubai or Bahrain or fish the Persian Gulf.
That's insane.
Yeah. So that's why I consider vacation. For a deployment, that's a vacation.
Yeah.
Oh,
Especially compared to
100%.
your first one.
Yeah, yeah, and at that point too, I felt like I kind of earned it. I volunteered for that mission too. Same thing, was reset at that point. I was between marriages at that point, and I was just not doing okay. I've only, like, this whole, like, new thing of, like, being okay on the civilian world has only recently happened 8 years ago, like towards the end of my career, and all that stuff. It really only happened then when I got back from that deployment, is where I was like, okay, I need to stop doing that because it's cool and it's great, but it's only healthy when I'm there. When I get back,
The
freaking
the
shit.
rest of the rest of the 90% of the time, it's
Yeah.
terrible.
Yeah. So I can either do one of two things. I can either jump on as many deployments as possible for the rest of my life until I have to retire or whatever, and just keep kicking that fucking can, or I could stop doing that and try my hardest, my fucking damnedest to find my place in this, and that's kind of where that started. And it took a lot. Even now, I'm still don't feel like I'm quite there. I'm definitely much better than I was. But, part of it too is just me just being the hardest person on myself. That's just kind of how it goes, and then also missing that kind of life every now and then.
Yeah, we're usually our worst critics, and it's hard to. I mean, it's very easy for someone to say, "Hey, you're doing great, you're doing this," like to give you positive feedback and even negative feedback. It's very easy for them to do it. But at the same time, us knowing ourselves, we're going to take that negative feedback and then we're going to amplify it.
Yeah, 100%.
And that's
100%.
just how it goes. Excuse me. But at the same time, you got out, and which leads me to my next question. Why did you decide to get out? Was it
I
was
got
it was it what you talked
physical,
about earlier? Oh,
physical.
okay.
A lot of it was just my body was done. I was getting older. I'm 41 now. When I got out a couple years ago, I was pushing 40. I was getting to a point where my body wasn't hacking it, and then mentally, I got to a point where, like, originally, let me backtrack. So originally, my goal was, I was about ready to come towards my, like, hey, reenlist again, and I was deciding, I was like, okay, maybe I don't reenlist this time. and maybe I take a year off, kind of recalibrate some shit, and then jump back in for my last like 4 years or whatever. And then, I was so kind of given the news as far as like the medical stuff and the mental stuff. And I'm like, okay, well, what are my options? They're like, these are your options. Either do the whole med board process, fight what's happening right now, or do because he did 15 years, or just get out with your retirement now and just wait for your age to collect. And that's what it was. So I kind of thought about it for a bit. I'm like, okay, well, I don't need the money now. I am still very much working. I still get out. I will take that third option and just wait till my retirement age to collect that money. So that's what I did.
And sometimes it's a gut punch to come to terms with that realization because in your mind, you want to keep doing it, but it's hard to come to terms with this isn't healthy for me anymore. This isn't, not only is it physically like deteriorating me faster than normal, like than a normal person, but it's mentally wearing me out a lot more.
Yeah, because I mean, I was still kind of in that, like I said, I got better, but I was still in that kind of like, hey, like maybe every now and then, every month, I would be like, hey, there's another mission coming up. Maybe if I jumped on that,
You still have a
yeah,
little bit of hope. But
yeah, yeah.
those thoughts, those problems. But this is the thing. Now you can't silence those problems because you hear your knees crack and you get up slowly. Picking something off the ground seems really hard. Those noises are still in the back of your head, but they're a little bit louder. And you're like, I really want to get on these missions, but at the same time, you're like, I don't think I physically can.
So, yeah, a lot of it was that. Then also just, there's the unit that I was in because I ended up staying in 17th Sustainment Brigade. There's just a lot of things I kind of disagreed with on them when it terms of just soldier care in general and stuff like that. And that was very much about my brothers and sisters, regardless. That just kind of get behind either. And it's just there's a mixture of that too. So I use that kind of as the kind of push to be like, hey, yes, you're broken, but this is the reality. I'm like, no, at the end of the day, it's like I'm broken. Like I just have to face the facts and just go from there. And then that's what it was. And that was the easiest process. The med board process would have took a whole lot longer. And I was just trying to at that point I made that decision. So
Mhm.
and that's what it was. Really the only differences on both sides is one you're not collecting your retirement early plus your VA at that point, depending
Mhm.
on what's happening. That's really the only difference. The one I did was like I can still do the VA thing, still do all that stuff, and still wait to collect my shit later when I, can't walk anymore or whatever the fuck, and and do that. So that's what I did.
And getting out for you was seems like it was a blessing in disguise because now you're on the board of the QRF Up organization, and you also like I said earlier in my intro, you are the founder of Freedom Bear Coffee Company. How did that come about? For those who don't know,
Yeah, so well, I'll start with the Freedom Bear Coffee. First, it was Bear Necessity Coffee Company.
bare
That was the that was
necessities.
that was the first name.
Yeah,
I wanted to play on the words that people already knew, but it wasn't me so much. Like that whole thing didn't have an inkling of me or like military service and what have you. So I kind of made a compromise later on after that. Was like, okay, let me put a little bit of patriotism in this whole thing, and it became Freedom Bear Coffee. And it started mainly out of like I said, I was getting older, and I wanted to late, but I wanted to kind of build stuff that was mine, stuff that I could be proud of, a legacy. I have kids, and that's kind of how it started originally. But then also in turn was like, okay, well, how can I help, or how can I still be a part of my fellow brothers and sisters in some way and help them out? And that's kind of what the driving force was, really. So I got to work. I found, the semi easiest way to kind of get it going without, a whole lot of effort in terms of like cost and everything else, and try to figure out so shopping for the best products, the cheapest way for customers to enjoy these products without, breaking their neck with prices, all these things. And I'm learning as I go, right? Because I'm not a businessman. Like this is new.
yeah,
So I'm learning as I go within that and being creative with the website and like posts and all that stuff. Within that, I found a way to escape mentally as well. I found something to kind of put that energy into.
yeah.
And it ended up becoming, a way to help, yes, our fellow brothers and sisters, but also a way to help me mentally.
Yeah. Because now,
And
because
that's
now, because now the noise is, like you said, the energy is being put in a different way, and it's always fun running something like a website, coffee company, or whatever it is. Especially like for me with this podcast, right? And I say that because it's always fun because you're always learning something new, whether you like it or not. The same problem does not come up twice, and like,
yeah, and well, I agree. And uh, things things aren't like challenges for me for very long. I'm not saying I'm badass at certain things, but like I figure things out pretty quick. And whatever challenge I may have, it usually subsides, no longer becomes challenging. And then my first reaction usually is like, well, now I don't have the motivation to do it because it's no longer challenging. The business has continued to be challenging in very good ways, whether it's, the posts or whether it's just, um, meeting new people based off of it or whatever the case may be. It gives me new things to deal with through it every time. It's been good, man. It's been very good.
it's always fun to get into the social media algorithm of things, and it's always
I do
hard.
too, man. I fucking hate it. I fucking hate it.
It's so hard, but it's so crucial to a business, though.
So it was easier for me to do a Freedom Bear Coffee IG page or account because it wasn't me. Like,
Mm.
I didn't have to put my face on it. It doesn't have my name on it for the most part, all this shit. It was only when I got in with QRF Up, where I'm like, well, shit, I have to kind of use my
Broadcast
personal
this.
IG pass, my personal IG page and kind of be a face in such a way. And that's no dig on them. That's just like me. I'm like, I want to be like the guy behind the scenes. But it just came with the territory. So that's why I have, the personal page now too. But how I got in with them, I keep in mind, they're one of they're ones that I'm on the board of directors for. But I do support two other nonprofits through the company. But Freedom Bear, it started out with a collaboration, or QRF Up. It started out with a collaboration through Freedom Bear. They liked what I was doing. I saw what they were doing, and we just did, we did some collab, and then that quickly turned into, hey, do you want to be a part of this in some way? And I'm like, sure. And I became a responder, which ended up being a state lead for the state of Nevada. And then, through the course of a few weeks, due to somebody having some personal stuff that they had to deal with outside of the organization, there was an opening for director of recruiting. And I was asked, and I took the call and I accepted, and here we are.
Hell yeah, dude. I love that. I love that you're out, and I love that you're not that you're out, but I love that you're out and you're still trying to help the service members all out there because it's one of those things that I've noticed myself feeling as well. Like how can I help? How can I be a part of it? And it's really hard, I think, because there's not a whole lot you could do because obviously politically there's a lot of things involved in it, and like legally you can't do a lot of things. But one of the things that I'm doing is one of the things that I did was I went to the All American run, the division run for 82nd, and I just handed out waters, and between you and me, some of those water bottles had tequila in it. I was, because
Yes.
because the MPs were being dicks about it. They're like there were signs all over the place. You couldn't throw beers, and it was a pain in the ass. But I threw a couple beers, threw a couple water bottles, and some of those small water bottles had some tequila in it. So, and then
Yes.
when I ran out, I started handing out zins,
So some of that shit has always bothered me even before I joined the military, was just the
handing out
fact
tequila.
that no, 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 that's a good thing. No, I hate running. You'll get me running real quick. No, it's just the fact that, we're 18, 17, you're old enough to join. 18, you're old enough to go to war.
You
But
come
when you
back
get
and you
back,
you
you
can't buy
can't
a
drink.
beer.
You can't buy a beer. You can't do all that shit. And Jesse Ventura said that, he was on one of his speeches, but it's true. That small little piece has such a big impact if people think about it. And that's kind of the main reason why. It's like we are, as veterans, even service members, we are kind of alone out here. You know what
Hmm.
I mean? Like, and that's sad but true, but we have to police our own up. We have to be there for our own because nobody else is. So
Yeah,
you handing out whiskey, you handing out, whatever it is for us because of who we are. That's like the ultimate thank you. You know what I mean?
For me, it was more of a tradition because I hated the runs. I hated the division runs, but what made it so fun and so bearable was seeing all the old dudes on the sidewalk because it's the whole division and it's an annual thing. And it's to celebrate the game, right? And they do a whole thing called All American Week. So the first day of All American Week, they do a huge run. It's the whole fucking division. And I remember when I was in, it sucked because it's such an ankle breaking pace and it's a huge slinky effect, right? It sucks so bad. Everybody hates it. But the only thing that really made it bearable was seeing the old dudes having fun, smiling, and then tossing beers to the boys, dude. That's what made it really special. But now, brags like you can't throw beers at dudes and shit like that. And it's such a buzzkill, to be honest. It's such a buzzkill, but I did it for tradition, for the boys, because they deserve some beers out there, man. It was rough, but we made it happen. But like I said, it's one of those things. It's one of those small ways to kind of give back and trying to withhold tradition and helping those that are just coming in, kind of bear it a little bit more. But like I mean, when I said gets a little muffled when like legally and politically. Like this is a small plug. I announced for the Bragg Baseball League here at Fort Bragg. Right, it's a baseball league with all service members from Bragg and they just play, right? They just play baseball. There's like a whole championship. There's like a team ranking, stuff like that. But the individual teams can't get sponsorships because they're active duty. But from what I've heard of the founder, he's like, there's so many local companies that want to invest, that want to give the teams, shirts, whatever it is. They want to help the teams because, they love the military, they love active duty, they love what they're doing, but they just can't because they're active duty. If somebody wants to give a local active duty baseball team bats, who gives a fuck? Who fucking let them give them fucking bats if they want to donate them, but they can't because they're active duty. It's a whole fucking thing. But it's a small way. For me, these things are a small way to give back. To give back
Yeah,
to the future generations.
yeah, you definitely don't have that problem on the guard side, dude. Like there's plenty of companies here that give out shit and they're able to take it and all that stuff and it's great and all that stuff, but it shouldn't fucking matter, dude.
It
It
really
shouldn't
shouldn't. If
fucking
somebody wants to help out the local military, why should I mean, I don't know, man. That's just
patriotism, bro. Are you really gonna stop patriotism? Come on, dude.
it's wild, dude. It's absolutely
Yes.
insane to me. Damien, we got to wrap things up. We got to let you go here in a little bit, but I can't let you go without playing Go or No Go at Freedom Bear Coffee Station.
Well, can we do one thing? Do you mind if I throw a plug out there before we do this?
I was gonna do plugs right after this.
Should we do it?
I was gonna do plug. Don't worry, I got you, man. I got you.
All right,
So this is gonna be Go or No Go at Freedom Bear Station, and this is looking at it through the eyes of. For me, it would be active duty, or for you, it'd be like a annual training while you're on active duty status, right? First one is working through lunch.
fuck, dude. So I do this now. For the boys. Okay, this is gonna be unpopular. It's gonna be unpopular, but go. It's a go for me, dude.
It's a go for you, man.
It's a
Really?
go for me. Yeah, only because I do it still now, and it's just I don't know. I don't know. It gives me time to. I'm that guy, man. I'm that fucking guy, bro. I'm sorry. It's fucking
I
go for me.
I'll pull back the curtain here a little bit because I was a mechanic and I hated working through lunch. Like if somebody brought pizza, like one of the NCOs brought pizza or something, because I knew that we'd be eating for like 15 minutes and then it's like right back to fucking work. And I knew it wasn't going to be an early day. And I'm like, that's why I have such a hatred for working through lunch. The
It's
next
always never
one,
an early day. That's why I did it. It's never an
yeah.
early day.
The next one is calling cadence when not in unit formation or run.
That's a fucking no-go, bro.
Dude, it happens a lot.
Dude, that is a huge no-go, man. No, no, dude, we used to avoid being into any sort of freaking box or anything, walking anywhere or doing anything, just so we didn't have to do that shit. You know?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
do you okay, this is a wild question, has nothing to do with go or no go, but what's the command for what's the command for a formation to walk out of step?
Around step.
Damn, you got that one pretty fast. I was thinking about that and I'm not gonna lie, it took me a couple of days to think about it, to figure it out without looking it up.
Yeah, dude, around step, bro.
Yeah, you guys are familiar with that one. Cuffing or rolling your sleeves.
Cuffing was something that everybody did regardless. That was something that a lot of people didn't give a shit about. There was only a few people that would, I only seen people actually legitimately be able to roll their sleeves like twice during my time.
There was a
And
weird moment in the army where like we all had to roll our sleeves. I don't know who fucking came up with it, but it was like a thing. It was the weirdest fucking thing.
so it's mainly always unit discretion.
Yeah.
I would have liked to, so I would say go on that.
What about heating up your MRE?
That's an either way for me, bro. Like if you're hungry, you're hungry. Like you've been there. I'm sure you have.
True. Yeah,
Um,
I never heated up my MRE. Just thought it
yeah,
was a waste of time.
that's an NA, bro. That's an NA.
What about wearing standard issued boots?
Nope, that's a no go.
That's what
That's a
I'm
no go.
talking about.
Yeah, dude.
That's what,
Yeah, dude. I love my Oakleys or my Under Armours
or the
or you know,
Garmin's.
yeah, dude. Any of those things, dude. The Loas, whatever, man. Yeah, no, fuck that.
What about wearing grunt style t-shirts out in public?
You know, there was a time, man. There was a
Yeah.
time where whatever, like, right? And I no dig on them. I get it, and all that stuff. But my cross rifles have changed. You guys have changed my cross rifles for the worst, I think. So I'm gonna say no go.
Oh, I'm gonna clip that.
Yeah, I'm just saying, bro. I mean, and it's not because I have my own company coming, but yeah,
No, because there was a time when don't pretend that I'm not gonna pretend like I didn't hear that. But there
yeah.
was a time where grunt style was fucking everywhere. It was everywhere. Everybody was wearing it, and it was the style, I guess. But some people took it a little bit too far because they'd wear their fucking army boots with a shirt, like with a grunt style shirt. And I think that's where it started going real downhill.
Yeah, there's certain names for those type of people that they belong to a certain crowd. But I'm not gonna say that. I'm not gonna say that on here because then it ends up being political.
Yeah. What about tucking your pants into your boots?
Oh no, dude, boot blasters all the way, bro. That's a no go.
Fuck yeah, that's what I'm talking
Yeah,
about, dude.
yeah.
Boot blasters are death. Which leads me to one of these: getting an army tattoo or a tab tattooed.
You fuck the tabs, dude. Fuck the tabs. Yeah, army tattoo is good, dude. I'm all about it. I have some army tattoos.
Was about to say, I need you to send me a couple pictures so I can throw them in.
Yeah, I got a few. I'll send you a few pictures. I mean, and they're army as. Tabs, unless it's a long tab, unless you came from them, cool. But if you have a Ranger tab, you could have been anywhere. You could
Dude,
have been fucking anywhere, dude.
there's dudes who get every kind of army. I don't know, like you know how people in the Navy usually get like the anchors or something like that, and almost every Marine that I know has a Marine tattoo. But it's rare to see a tab tattooed. But a lot of people do have army tattoos that are like like on their chest where it like reveals like their like the digital pattern and then or the camel pattern and then U.S. Army or their fucking name tape right here.
So for me, it's going to be all about tradition. Right?
Hmm.
If you're coming from a unit or a squad or platoon, anybody that's their thing. That's their tradition. Dude, too easy, too easy. But if you are doing that and you did not come from that shit, then we have to kind of think about this.
I love those. I love those tattoos of people who like they post them on like Instagram and Facebook and all that stuff. I love those tattoos. That's like Marine, like they get the whole Semper Fidelis thing on their chest. I love it because usually if it's on Facebook of like I got a new tattoo, it's like I'm gonna ship out for boot camp in like 2 weeks.
Yeah,
Like they're not even in yet and they just got it. I love that. I think
yeah.
it's so funny.
Well, this says infantry right here. It's a different way. That starts
Oh,
infantry.
okay. Oh, that's pretty
Uh,
dope.
yeah, but I got the dog tags here. This is a buddy of mine that I told you last time. He was the one that he got gunned down 2 days back into
Okay,
his job.
coming back here,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. But and then just stuff that has to do with like war, but it's not necessarily military.
Okay.
Yeah, battle mainly. You know what I mean?
The last one, service ribbon stickers on a rear windshield.
I say no go. I say no go. I say no go only for me. The only thing that matters to me is whether or not you got a CIB or a cab.
Hmm.
And any of those things, I don't care about. I don't care about anything else. But the reason why, okay, let me bring this back. If you have those things and you don't have a CIB or a cab associated with it,
Okay.
then whatever, man.
Then you're like, nah.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, that's cool. That's cool.
So that's a go for you.
That's like you putting your unit patch there instead of your combat patch. Like that's whatever, dude.
Hey, yeah, I've never been a big proponent of the whole ERB on the windshield. I've just
Oh,
for me
the
it's just that's what I meant. Like like all the ribbons that you normally wear on your uniform, there's a lot of people that make those into stickers and then they just put them on their rear windshield.
Could you imagine if you started doing that while you're still in and having to change that sticker every fucking time?
Every time. Fuck no, dude. No,
You know what I mean?
the worst part would be doing it now into like being a super hua fucking like 4 year like 4 years in this climate because I don't think they do the National Defense Medal anymore.
Everything is different now, man. If you get anything combat related nowadays in terms of like a CIB or a cab or whatever, like it's rare. It's a very rare situation. As far as ribbons go, yeah, I mean, as far as like the normal ribbons that we're used to, like the GWATs and everything else, like yeah, that's not happening anymore either. You know?
Yeah, no, and it's weird because now, and I was talking about this probably on my last episode during the time that I was in when I first came in, and I'm sure it's the time that you came in as well. Back then, you didn't see a lot of slick sleeves.
No,
Like if they
no.
were slick sleeves, they were either about to get on the deployment or some sergeant major or first sergeant saw them and they were like if they were like in their battalion or something like that, like, hey, come on, come to this unit. We're about to get ready to deploy, right? But now it's super rare. Now it's the opposite. It's super rare to see someone with a combat patch and or a CIB and shit like that. And I think that's why the Army's like pushing ESB down everybody's throats now.
Well, yeah. I mean, so you have the expert soldier badge now. You have, the ESB. You have you still have like the ERB and shit like that. I mean, yeah. So it is. I've seen that more now for sure. But the other side of it though too is even when you do see somebody that's not a six sleeve nowadays, chances are, they went from Kuwait, for example, to Iraq. That's a combat zone for a day and
Just to
came
get their
back
patch and then came back.
just
Yeah.
to get their patch. I've seen first sergeants, sergeant majors with zero, nothing, shit
Yeah, it
nowadays.
that's what I'm saying. Yeah, it's starting to be
Fucking
very
crazy.
common. It's starting to be very
Yeah.
common. And for me it's the old, and I was talking about it too because it's the old way of thinking because back then if you didn't have a deployment patch or some sort of cab or CIB, it was like you were very bottom of the totem pole. Now it's completely different. And I had to change a heart to it because of course, combat experience varies from person to person, MOS to MOS, but
Oh, for
some
sure,
it
100%.
doesn't necessarily, like, that combat experience doesn't necessarily make you a more effective leader. It doesn't necessarily make you a better person, but the combat deployments doesn't necessarily equal being an effective leader. It might.
No, no, but it definitely gives somebody understanding that you possibly know something.
100%, right.
Yeah. And
A
that's
hundred
and
percent.
that's really what it comes down to is whether or not that person needs to take a second look to feel like, hey, you have like you can teach them some shit or you have their back because of experience, or whether or not they have to really gauge you. That's what it comes down to.
Like kind of like being an asset or a liability.
Yeah.
Sometimes it is
Yeah,
what
because
it is. But
I have seen very, very on paper individuals. They have their pathfinders, they have their freaking Ranger tabs, they have everything else that were fucking shitbirds. 100%.
and you meet them and you're like, this is not the same person on the CRB. I've met a lot of those. You meet a lot of those in the Army, dude. You really
Yeah.
do. You
Yeah.
really
And
do.
and then I've seen somebody with absolutely nothing that was one of the best soldiers I've ever seen.
Stellar people. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, it really does vary. I have one for you, real quick. Custom veterans plates or no custom veterans plates?
What are you talking about? Like the disabled veteran ones?
Oh no, disabled is fine. Just a regular veteran plate. Is that go or no go for you?
I don't even think
Custom
I've
ones.
ever. I don't think I've ever seen just custom veteran plates
No.
because here in Fayetteville, I've only seen the disabled veteran with the little wheelchair, and here in North Carolina, it says like it has a wheelchair on one side, and then it'll say disabled veterans in small letters in between the numbers, and then that's about
Uh,
it.
yeah. So here at Standard Nevada, like you'll have our crest, the Army crest, and then it'll say, again, Army veteran. And then it'll have whatever you have there as far as, the number, whatever case. But you could customize that part to be
Uh,
whatever the fuck you want it to be. Yeah. So if you're a high speed fucking infantry guy, you can put 11 Bravo there if you wanted to, if nobody took
oh,
it.
I know what you're talking about, and you know what? I am gonna say go for that one, only because my old company commander, Adam. Again, Adam, you're getting another shout out. Shout out to Adam because he had a Florida, I think it was Florida license plate that said "Jumpin' Pogue."
I like it.
Yep,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
why I
yeah.
say
I
go
like
to
it.
it, man.
I
That's why I
like it.
say go for that.
I think
Fucking
I think if you throw like your rank or whatever in there, that might be a no go for me because that's gonna
yeah,
always.
that'd be pretty lame. No, it's got to be funny. It's got to be
It
funny.
has to be funny. It has to
You
be
can't
funny,
just put
100%.
Captain. You can't be like Captain B or
Yeah,
CW4 or something like. No, get the
yeah.
fuck
If
out
you're
of here,
gonna
dude. It's
full send. If you're going full send, dude. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely,
full
100%.
send. It's got to be funny for it to be a go. If it's rank, that's gonna be a no go, dude. That's gonna be a no go for me. But we finished go and no go. Damien, it's been awesome having you here. It's been awesome talking to you. Go ahead and plug everything you got to plug, man.
Yeah, well, first and foremost, I have to plug in QRF up, right?
Of course.
Their main effort, the effort is to stop veteran first responder suicide. All right,
Yep.
that's the goal. And I don't want to necessarily tell a story about Ram and why he does what he does, the president of the organization, but it is a very, very deeply, deeply important thing to this man and to everybody that's in. Now we do all this through a quick response, like a mobile app
Mhm.
for responders. And to this date, with our pilot that went out and that's continuing going on right now, we've saved almost 6,500 lives that could
Wow.
otherwise be suicide victims, and we're just still going strong. And my goal for the organization really is just to get as many people involved in every state as possible, whether it's there's people that are veterans or first responders or even active duty if they have the time, or people that just want to help civilians that have a story and that feel the need to help veterans or all of us. Then they all can apply. The goal is strictly to not only to stop veteran and first responder suicide, but also for quality of life. What happens after that? What happens after we triage somebody and we get them back to an even spot in their lives? What can we do to continue that so they don't have to make that call again? And that's why we're partnered up with 200 plus companies and organizations, is to provide as much support in any sort of way as possible.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but you guys also partnered with CT Fletcher.
Yeah, he's actually on our board of directors as the
Yeah.
veteran outreach side of things. If people don't know who he is, look him up. I'll let his whole thing kind of tell you what he's about. But he's a big deal. He's a big deal. He's also a veteran as well. So
Yep.
this stuff matters to him. People say 22 a day, and that's not accurate. That's overly underrated. We're looking more at 44,
Mhm.
45 a day, and that's just on the veteran side of things. I can't tell you the numbers right off the bat as far as the first responder side of things.
Yep.
That's us, and that's one is already too many, but 44, and like that shit has to stop, man. So we're trying to completely stop that as best we can, and we do that through that app. If anybody wants to know more about that, they can hit me up, and then of course go to qrfup.org to find out more and how they can help.
Hell yeah, dude. Let's talk about let's plug Freedom Bear.
Yeah, so Free and Bear, obviously veteran-owned company. That is self-explanatory. And freaking fresh coffee to your doorstep. That is it. It's roast to order concept. So once you order the coffee, it gets in the process of getting roasted and shipped that same day once it's done roasting. And you get that coffee within 3 to 7 business days. No taxes, free shipping, whole nine. If you are a veteran or first responder, you get 20% off from me. Just reach out to me with
Okay.
any of the plugs or on the website itself. That way I can just make sure that, they are who they are.
Yeah. Yeah, hell yeah, dude. So like you said before, download QRF Up organization, download that app. It's out nationally, right?
It is. It is. And yeah, we're already live in a few states here. We're kind of going through state by state, and we're going to continue to push and push as we get more responders and more licensed mental health professionals.
Hell yeah, dude. So download QRF Up if you're ever feeling like you have a tough time, you have a tough time adjusting, life isn't fair. People care, we all care. Download QRF Up to get some help if you need it. There's no judgment, there's no judgment, there's no negative talks about it.
We don't report. We don't
They
report.
do not report, which is a
Yeah.
huge thing. It's a huge thing because God knows it's hard enough to get any kind of contact with the VA. And if you do get any mental help from the VA, it gets scary. We'll just say that. It gets scary and it gets sketchy, but QRF Up does not report. They'll help you feel heard and loved and seen. You're not alone. Go to Freedom Bear Coffee Company, get your fresh coffee that roast to order, and go check it out. Also, check out Damien Celaya for that discount code. He said, veterans and first responders get 20% off. Damien, it has been an absolute pleasure to have you here today. Thank you for coming on and telling your story, and especially for plugging QRF Up, which is an incredible asset that we need more people to hear about.
I appreciate that, man. Dude, thank you for your time, man. This has been super fun.
Dude, thank you so much for coming on. That's going to do it for us today, everybody. My name is Leo with the Wet Boots Podcast, reminding you that sometimes you have no other choice to keep going in wet boots. We'll see you next time.